Buongiorno. So I have been in cybersecurity for 32 years. My perspective is that we are in the middle of the biggest technology trend that any of us have ever seen and perhaps ever will see. So like a science fiction monster, generative AI is ripping up companies and turning them upside down. Like Vesuvius, it's causing the earth to shake beneath our feet. And if there's one thing that I want you to remember from my presentation, it is that you, as cybersecurity professionals, you have the responsibility to know more about generative AI than anyone else in your organization, from top to bottom. And so let's go on this journey together. So Cloud Security Alliance, we are a global not-for-profit that's built a very large cybersecurity community with education, research, best practices. We have 140 chapters around the world. My very favorite chapter is CSA Italy. It's a tremendous chapter. Thank you very much, Alberto, for all your wonderful work over a dozen or more years to make it what it is. It's a very important part of the world, and they've done a terrific job. Our AI safety initiative, something that we launched last year, basically you could think of it in these different dimensions. It's how can AI be attacked, prompt injection, the data poisoning, all those things. How can AI attack you? Lots of different things. I'll go into a little bit of that. And so that after the first part of the presentation, I'm going to spend time on actually how can AI transform cybersecurity. I'm actually seeing it happen with some companies that are trying to get out ahead of this and doing a lot of experimentation. And I hope you find some of that useful, maybe somewhat inspirational for how you can operate within your organization. So credit to one of our members, Questa. Apologies it didn't come out like great, but like we're certainly, I think you're all seeing this. We're seeing the deep fakes. We're seeing phishing attacks getting better and better and better. We're seeing the social engineering happening. We are seeing vulnerability scanning automated against huge GitHub repos and everywhere, and we're finding more and more 0 days. We're just sort of at the beginning of that. We're actually able to create polymorphic malware. These are somewhat concerning, but actually very basic compared to where things are going to be going. So in the not too distant future, it's pretty easy to, it looks like it's disconnected from the screen there, but what I can tell you that a little bit of a story here is that I've asked people who are very well versed in thinking about generative AI and sort of futurists, and they're painting pictures similar to this one. And it's just one example. Hacker gets a data dump of personal information. Their agent goes out and scans the internet for their presence. And we all have very large footprints. I call mine a slime trail on the internet. But you not only can profile that, we sometimes call that like a digital twin. You go do that, but you actually will have the capability to create the digital twins of everyone they know, everyone they love, and be able to do that very quickly. And cloning the voices, the images, we have, it's amazing how much better these things get day to day. And one of our top experts has been cloning his voice and testing it, and to the point that his children, his best friend, cannot tell the difference. They actually like the cloned voice better than his normal one. They thought it was him more often. So you can imagine the types of attacks. Two people are having a conversation online about planning a party, and literally a few minutes later, an AI agent slides into their DM and says, "I'll go buy the wine, here go, verse me or Venmo me, whatever's here in Italy, 100 euros, and I'll go take care of it. And it's like, it's going to be so in context to how you have been operating that day that it's going to be so hard to avoid these things. And I'll be done in a few minutes. It's really we're reaching some amazing changes in capabilities. So if I go back to the present, just to sort of level set, and why when I'm at a lot of conferences, cybersecurity or AI conferences, it's going to characterize AI as this interesting new tool that's going to make us more productive. I don't know if it all completely characterizes it, but truly when you think about the large language model, like the bigger part of generative AI that we're focused on, you know, it's this model that's trained to understand and generate human-like text. It's a statistical model. It's not consciousness or anything like that. You do the tokenization, you break sentences, words down to these tokens. You do this transformation to like sort of understand, it's through this data training process to understand relationships between these different tokens. And then there's just generation that predicts tokens in succession based on whatever input you get. It sounds so innocuous and nothing that's a major deal. The massive amount of compute, the massive amount of data, the algorithms as they are being changed and improved, the training that's going into this is creating just fascinating capabilities. The fact that it's non-deterministic, it's very interesting talking to creators of these large language models and generative AI systems. They just don't know what it's going to do. And this idea of emergent capabilities, and we see it day to day, week to week, it can't do this, and then the next thing we know, we see it do some pretty amazing things. But still, I think some people have characterized it, it's like a toddler or a teenager that's smart but like lacks a lot of things in it. And there's certainly a lot of errors in it, accuracy issues, hallucinations, things like that. So just to share, like from my inbox, an AI executive who's pushing Cloud Security Alliance to move faster on our AI safety initiative is that based on recent breakthroughs in System 2 thinking, which System 2 thinking is basically, you might think of it as approaching AGI, artificial general intelligence, but it's about all these things that we think of as current limitations, that System 2 should solve that. So this person's expectation is there's going to be 2 to 3 of these large frontier models, we call them, late 2025, early 2026, be able to perform most of the junior to mid-career digital knowledge workers roles. And the way you sort of think about this, if that job has a lot of information about how the job works, a lot of instructional information, like in cybersecurity, how do I open up something on my S3 buckets, open up access, those sorts of things. There's so much information out there that there's real concern that this will be able to do those roles like just as well as the workers themselves. So we shall see, but it's not going to take very long for us to know whether or not this person's correct or not. So suggestions that I have, again, it's very important to understand this. Its inner workings, but also how we see it evolve. It's so important to stay engaged so that we understand. This is how it worked today, and what are the improvements people are always making with it, maybe training the models themselves, improving, tuning them, or sometimes it's building layers of abstraction, applications on top of them. But how is it evolving? Understand that this future is coming of much more powerful AI. I've sort of made the statement, maybe if we make it a responsible child, it'll be a responsible adult. And so it's very important that we have those understanding of what those guardrails should look like. Understand from your profession, my profession, that the principles we've been taught about risk management, about threat actors, about vulnerabilities, about the importance of identity, These are all principles that you've learned that are going to suit you very well in the future. It's going to be completely relevant. But understand, AI is necessary for the scale. AI is necessary for good AI fighting bad AI. And again, understand that it's your job to understand it through every layer that exists. Where some people are building an AI application, they just need to understand that API interface. You need to understand it very holistically. So another slide, this is from Microsoft at our CSA summit at RSA earlier this year. But it kind of gives you sort of a good flavor of like how we think about this sort of shared security responsibility model, where this is not something that we are throwing all the responsibility over to the very large frontier large language models, the OpenAI, the Anthropic, Google DeepMind, that they have their responsibility, but certainly as you're building applications on top of these and you're using RAG, you're using vector databases, you're creating a lot of web applications, there's a lot of different areas where these systems can get attacked and have weaknesses. And then to the enterprises that are using this, they have very big responsibilities in the usage of it and to make sure that's ethical, everything else. So this fits across the spectrum. And very much like you think about cloud computing, maybe in the early days there was this, hey, it's up to the hyperscalers, they've got these responsibilities, which they certainly do, but it's not limited to them, it's really all of us. So if we believe that, those threats, if we believe we have a shared responsibility, if we believe this is going to get more and more powerful, like how should we be thinking about that today? And I'd encourage you to go to our cloudsecurityalliance.ai landing page, and you can download all of the research. We've already got about a dozen excellent research artifacts. You can go download those and you can learn more about it, but it's got to be organizational wide. You got to be thinking about the different roles and responsibilities, how you work across all the different departments to vet the different projects underway, to manage to assess the risks, the ROI, to go implement this. Risk management is important as ever, but the non-deterministic nature means we've got to think about that a little bit differently. Definitely, we're big fans of the NIST AI risk management framework, and we've created something complementary there. Protecting an enterprise, protecting your information, it's very much a data governance issue. And we think things like zero trust. Zero trust is probably the best philosophy, strategy, and I know it was talked about earlier today, that can be applied to protecting your information, because we take all the security controls off of it when we ingest it into LLMs, and we gotta reapply that. So again, understand this holistically, make sure the people in the organization are trained and understand this, and definitely understand this is a shared security responsibility. So for my last part, I did want to talk a little bit about like how I'm observing generative AI sort of solving cybersecurity problems, how it's changing the industry. And it's kind of interesting, but it's sort of breaking down silos that exist in organizations, and it's causing somewhat of a culture change where I've seen sort of the early adopters of trying to figure this out. So the person who's the chair of our AI safety initiative is a person named Caleb Sima. Caleb was sort of got his first fame for being one of the co-inventors of the web application security space. He created a web scanner 25 years ago called Web Inspect. I think it's now part of HP. And so he, from that, pivoted to actually being a CISO at a financial services organization. But he actually quit a job he loved because he saw this trend, and he is very passionate about learning as much about generative AI and understanding with his deep knowledge in the cybersecurity industry, seeing how we can transform it. And so I'm stealing some of his slides. And well, you could say these are like the CISO's top security, operational security challenges. It's definitely not like the governance, the board communication, the budget, the people. Those are definitely at a different layer. But he checked with a lot of them, and this is sort of the consensus list of reporting, vulnerability management, least privilege, compliance and measurement of systems, incident management, detection response. And so this is sort of this breadth of things that are often a real challenge to keep up with. So what Caleb did is sort of identified that the underlying issue, he calls it the 3 C's, context. How do you know, like a certain indicator you're seeing, do you have all the context to know that it's really an issue? If you look through a syslog or you look through a large vulnerability scan, how do you really know it's an issue, or an asset system? Coverage, how do you make sure you're covering all of the different areas and you're going to the depth in all of those different 6 areas to make sure you're being as accurate as possible? And how are you communicating? Communication, it's just generically, you go to any business school, it's like the biggest cause of failure in organizations. It's just right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. We're not shifting left, all of those sorts of things. So AI, generative AI specifically, really excels in this, the ability for it to analyze large amounts of information in all these different dimensions. So if you think about it, think about, for example, a log or a vulnerability scan that maybe shows a container that's got like vulnerabilities in it. It seems like it's overprivileged, it's got too many privileges. Maybe it's got some access, there's access that's going out to some location we haven't seen before that we're allowing access to it. So how do you know like that's actually something that there's no information in it, there's no data in it, it doesn't look like it's been used, so maybe it's not important that all of these things we're seeing on it. But what if we are in real time looking at information from other dimensions? Like there's a Slack channel where some developers are talking with a product manager about we need to create a new area for a new customer and a new business partnership. And maybe there was a Zoom call where they talked about this and said, yeah, we're going to set this up, we're going to go do some testing, and then next week we're going to put our live corporate jewels in this. Our most important data is going to be in this. So, lacking that context, what you're going to see is that someone may like pass and say, hey, it's probably some sort of test thing, it's probably nothing, and we don't see any history of activity in this, and we don't see any information here. So we're not going to make this a high priority fix because we have so many things to do. So I've actually seen this with a few companies that are starting to use tools, and they're taking information from service tickets, they're taking information from Slack, they're taking information from their web conferencing system, meeting minutes, they're taking a lot of unstructured data, and they're actually narrowing down in a very interesting way how the actual security posture is, and also making security for the non-security people in the organization and IT and developers, they're making it something that they actually enjoy a lot more, and they're showing a lot better customer service. The coverage, we often do the triage based on faulty assumptions just because we don't have the coverage. But as Caleb said, what would you do if you had 10,000 smart junior security engineers? How would that be able to do that? So all those 6 buckets, being able to go very deep in those while you are trying to get the right context. And then the communications. Again, if there's someone that's unsure and they need verification, we always try to be proactive and say, oh, I gotta copy everyone on these emails from the beginning to end, because there might be a 1 in 100 chance that person's gonna need to know something that's in one of those 1,000 emails. And so, that's the culture we live in. But if we make that change, then what we're going to see is that it's going to marshal that sort of communications, it's going to get the approvals, and it's going to work like I think, beautifully. It's going to be necessary as AI battles AI. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk here. Again, this is the biggest technology trend ever. It's our responsibility to make this successful. It's much higher stakes how this is going to be in the future as AI gets more powerful. And we're delighted to be your navigator, and check out our site, check out all our information, and work with the chapter locally here as we move forward. So thank you very much.